So let's see, where did we leave off? Something smells fishy. No. I remember we left off. That's sea folk. Pray for my soul. Part 5. Something smells fishy. Wait, what? Sea folk PNG. Oh. Yeah, I had to do art, so I made this, which let's play a game that I made with it. Guess which one of these is part of the tribal factions. Some of them are easier than others. Some are nigh impossible to have guessed. Okay. Let's see. Vacation. Summary. Oh yeah. I remember what it was. Wasn't it like TCOP summer vacation or something? TCOP, something smells fishy. No, that was an actual vacation that I went on. It was a while ago though, so it shouldn't have much to talk about. Cost of power, chapter 0 now. Plan, TCOP, under the sea. And there were 3. Oh wait. This is the part that we need to tackle next. Excuse me. I very much enjoy ramen. Let's see. TCOP. Then there were 3. I'm intentionally going a lot slower as to not burn myself out and also actually comment on some of this stuff. And if someone shows up, I'll actually slow down even more to let them share their opinion on it. So, yeah. I'll remind you that this continent is located south of the equator, meaning since we are in the north, we are in the tropical region. The tropical region is home to many species, some demi-human, most fish. But that's a story for a different time. This place has many cultures and tribes, so let's break down the main 2 you'll be dealing with. One moment. Going on a snail's pace. Now, I called the people who live here surfers because I didn't want to actually have to represent any other group. And my example here was Hawaii. Now, since I'm American, it's just the first similar culture that came to mind, and as in location and environment. Excuse me. These seemingly primitive tribes, folk, are misrepresented, as they, through exposure to the outside world, have become more technologically advanced, but hold strong to their stories, culture, and traditions and history. They make clothes from palm leaves and armor from local crab shells. Their houses are grafted trees with hammocks for beds. One moment. They have spent thousands of years learning from nature. One moment. Let's hope I get through this before I die from choking. There. Goodness. I don't know if I'll make it through this. Let's see. Okay. They have spent thousands of years learning from nature. Historians find many tales very interesting, saying that long ago a fair maiden sacrificed herself to calm the sea and trap the beasts of the water deep below the waves in a cave where they'll never escape. It's not known if this cavern exists, but it has been named and people have attempted to find it. It is commonly referred to as the hidden sea where leviathans sleep. The leviathans are seemingly compared to gods, but that is just a misunderstanding. It's more like a raid boss or an apex that got a little out of hand. The leviathans are, as mentioned, Skeldrew the Kraken, Jinsei the Great Crab. We're going to talk about those two a lot more. Awuku the Rebel, Trefius the Mer-King, and Thargul the Enslaver. I don't know if he's actually going to be an enslaver or just heavily misunderstood. But, yeah. And I don't mean that as in, oh, he enslaved all those people by mistake. No, that's not how that works. The water monks. I've mentioned this once in the first chapter, which we talked about last time, so I'll not go into too much detail. The Grand Water Temple is built into a mountain with a waterfall running through it as an aqueduct, and they use algae as a light source instead of fire. They grow fish in giant pools for their food. Their way of dealing with outsiders is to ignore them. Other than that, they're humans. And there we go. Save. Let's see. So now, we haven't talked about any of these yet. So then, that's in the Amazon, something smells fishy, and then, alright. Hello, Cookie Boy. Let's see, when did you appear? Did you appear just as I was finishing up that, last page? Like 2 seconds ago. Yeah, okay. I can redo it. Read it again if you want. TCOP. Then there were three. I'll remind you that this continent is located south of the equator, meaning since we are in the north, we're in the tropical region. The tropical region is home to many species, some demi-human, most fish. But that's a story for a different time. This place has many cultures and tribes, so I'll be talking about the main two you'll be dealing with. Also, there's a fun game here. These are items, and this is message in a bottle. Everything else is in some way related to an entity. So it's a fun bingo-esque game where we go through talking about them, seeing which one are tribal and which one are animals. So yeah. The water monks. Oh wait, no. Surfers. Because I didn't want to misrepresent, let's see. Because I didn't want to misrepresent Hawaii, which is what I'd do if I tried to make an if I tried to take like an actual civilization and put it in here. So, yeah. These seemingly primitive tribesfolk are misrepresented, as they, through exposure to the outside world, have become more technologically advanced, but hold strong to their stories, culture, traditions, and history. They make clothes from palm leaves and armor from local crab shells. Their houses are grafted palm trees with hammocks for beds. They have spent thousands of years learning from nature. Historians find many of their tales very interesting, saying that long ago a fair maiden sacrificed herself to calm the sea and trap the beasts of the water deep below the waves in a cave where they'll never escape. It's not known if this cavern exists, but it has been named, and people have attempted to find it. Basically, it's Atlantis. Go hunt for Atlantis is basically the quest of this area. It is commonly referred to as the hidden sea where leviathans sleep. The leviathans are seemingly compared to gods, but this is a misunderstanding. It's more like a raid boss, which isn't true. They are much weaker than a raid boss. They're more like alpha creatures that have gone out of hand. Okay, should I go look for Atlantis? Okay, that no, I wouldn't recommend it. Atlantis doesn't exist in this. It's more of go look for the Leviathan's prison. And not all Leviathans are bad, but we're going to talk about that later. The Leviathans are, as mentioned, Skeldrew the Kraken, Jinsey the Crab, who take up most of the screen time, Awolku the Rebel, Treepheus the Mer-King, and Thargul the Enslaver. Goodness. The Water Monks. I've mentioned this once in the first chapter, so I'll not go into too much detail. The Grand Water Temple is built into a mountain with a waterfall running through it as an aqueduct, and they use algae as a light source instead of fire. Well, it looked for Atlantis. I'll see you in years, but I will not go. I feel like there are too many 8s. It's a strange 8833838838. Like you have very little variation in your random number generators. Let's see. They grow fish in giant pools for their food. Their way of dealing with outsiders is to ignore them. And that's pretty much these two. Water monks, see, most monks have different ways with dealing with outsiders. Like I've mentioned before. The earth monks are the most territorial. They will attack anyone who gets too close to their territory. The Water monks will kind of just ignore your existence, but you can move through their territory. Air monks, if you go to them, they're nice. They'll treat you like not poorly, but they aren't going to go out and specifically find you. It's more about freedom for them. That's their grounding philosophy, which is, funnily enough, the thing that lets them get off the ground and start flying. But yeah, oh well. Then there's the fire monks, who I keep trying to figure out. Oh, yeah, save that. What I want to say for them, because I don't really have a good way of wording it. They're very social. They're very active, energetic. You also use the avatar monks. Yeah, they're the four elements, plus the yin and yang, which kind of is the avatar. Cost of power. Let's see. Where is seconds in desert? Where is the? Let's see. Is this? Yeah. That is the creatures. Sea life. Sea folk. PNG. Darn it. Where is the? Odd. Pray for my soul. That's season 3, episode 5. Oh, wait. Okay, no, that's the desert. We already did the desert. Let's see. Where is, I don't know. Sea? Under the sea, sea folk PNG. The leagues below. There we are. Yeah, this is the chapter that I use next. But first off, this one. TCOP. Something smells fishy. In the tribes, many creatures call the coast home, so the number of tribes has more than tripled. Harpies, technically the 4th time we encountered harpies, but they're birds. What do you expect? Funnily enough, I have tackled harpies in like every way I can think of. There's they're animals in the first, then they were part of one of the 2 main cultures, and then there was a offshoot of them that was like a different type of harpy. It was a variant, and now they're a tribal species. So we have gotten like every harpy. Also, mark it off your bingo card, because there they are. Let's see, get back to that. Technically the 4th time we encountered harpies, but they're birds. What do you expect? Harpies are normally hunters, foragers, and fishers living in one large nest. They used to hunt crabs plentifully before Jinsey the great crab appeared. Before the Fire Nation attacked. But no, that isn't really how the story went. Their way of life was altered. Now they are attacked by an army of crabs regularly, and vice versa. It just wants me to move it somewhere. If a player finds their nest during one of these assaults and helps defend the nest, the harpies will be very grateful and allow you into their nest. This can be used to gain a special class, Harpy Guard. This gives jump boost, fall protection, slow fall, aerial strike, and spear proficiency. Unfortunately, this isn't the best class, but it gives access to crab assault and nest defense events, and they are all attacked by the Fire Nation. No, the Fire Nation is actually in the next thing. But it gives access to crab assault and nest defense events, which give good rewards at low to mid levels. Wait, are you planning to make that into a game? Yes. I plan to make all of these things into actual video games. And I am putting them on paper for when that happens. Sea bunnies and axolotls, also known as the enslaved. Sounds nice. Yeah, it's why we are, the channel's name is the Twisted Toy Box Studios. It's referencing a game studio. Sea bunnies and axolotls, also known as the enslaved, as they were once the property of Thargul the Enslaver. He is cloaked in mystery as no one knows what he is or what he looks like. The enslaved have a genetic slave mentality, meaning no matter where you go, you'll see the enslaved working for someone. This surprisingly was helpful for them, as even the non-tribal races thought of them as tooth-cleaning helpers, which is an actual quote-unquote profession for fish in the real world, which is actually really interesting. As long as you can provide food and water basins, they are a free form of weak labor, meaning they can be used for physical labor, they're just going to be bad at it. Some people keep them as pets, which is kinda difficult. The enslaved are confident that one day Thargul the Enslaver will find a way to break free from the prison that he is wrongfully trapped in. Surprisingly, they only have good things to say about him, but this can be attributed to their slave mentality. Their slave mentality runs so deep that a prolonged period of idleness can be harmful, both physically and mentally. They even bite each other to form chains and swim around a pole or some object so that they can basically anchor themselves so they don't float away during sleep. Basically, they have unlimited zoomies. Note they don't suffer from fatigue. Their minds need rest and sleep, but their bodies do not wear out. And also, we can check these two off. Also, this guy's accidentally decapitated. That's just because of the stuff I was using, which is rather annoying. Let's go back here. Sirens. Let's just mark this guy off. It's these ones specifically, the bigger ones. They are a common sea folk that once were treated as servants of mermaids due to their chance of gaining magical power being less, but their physical strength was greater, and their numbers grew greater than the mermaids. A siren named, oh god, Awulko, however you pronounce this made-up name, started plotting to overthrow the mermaids. Later, he would be sealed in the hidden sea, and the sirens would go on to remember him as Awulko the Rebel. There is a few variants of siren, including Sea Witch / Pag, Sea Fury, and Octo Assassins. Sea hags are much smaller than most sirens, giving them even more of a resemblance to mermaids. Sea furies are much larger than normal sirens and much stronger. Octoassassins deal with octopi to gain their camouflage ability. They are very powerful ambush predators and can be one of the other two variants as well, simply because it isn't genetic. Like if you're a sea hag or a giant siren, you don't suddenly lose the ability to speak with squid. A siren can lay up to 15 eggs in one litter and needs to feed fish blood for the eggs to properly grow. Even in a bad hunting season, however, at least half may hatch, if any. Mermaids, which, yeah, you can probably guess is these guys, since I mentioned them. I am going to say you don't need to respond to everything with confirmation. But if you do have like some honest thoughts about something, then I would very much. Okay. Meyerman. Let's see. No, wait, I'm on mermaids. A very rare, smaller variant of sirens. They used to be more common, but the sirens rebelled. I feel like I'm getting a reference, but I can't remember what reference it is. Against Trefius the Mer-King, causing a great war that shook the sea, which inevitably led them to being trapped. All was great until the sirens rebelled. Yeah, I think that's pretty much. Great war that shook the sea, which inevitably led them to be trapped in the hidden sea. Now, mermaids are a very rare sight. They have a high chance of possessing great magical potential, since they have to give live birth, as opposed to sirens which can lay in batches. Their reproduction is slower than the sirens, which is how the sirens were able to outnumber the mermaids. Meyerman, let's see. I think it was this guy. Oh, wait. Swamp folk that live mostly on dry land, on dry ground. They live in swamps. They fish and hunt for their food. They live in huts made of thatch and straw. They live peaceful lives in their villages mostly. They and the lizard men eat very little, rationing food at all times. Surprisingly, they ration most right after a harvest. And here we're getting to the octopi and crabs. So, this is an octopus. You can kind of make out the rock that it's clinging to. This is a crab. Alright, let's see. Well, tell them to get out of my swamp. No, actually, it's a different guy's swamp. It's the swamp's swamp. And yes, I did just make a swamp and then work my way backwards from a name. I do that sometimes. Okay. Octopi. You don't normally think about it, but the life of an octopus is kind of like a superhero origin story. Let me elaborate. The males die during mating, and the females starve protecting their eggs. So by the time the eggs hatch, they are already orphans. I swear it gets more interesting. That'd be a pretty pathetic superhero if my parents die genetically. And that's my superpower. They are super smart and have camouflage, are sometimes poisonous, can shoot ink, have jet propulsion, and can squeeze into any space. So if you enhance their abilities, imagine what they could accomplish. That is why an octopus is a cephalopod superorganism. I'm basically hyping them up. Don't worry, it's about to be like medicine. It's all good until you realize that the ambrosia only is temporary. Let's see. Think Batman, but a fish. That's the entire line. If they had longer lifespans, they could be some of the greatest animals on the planet, which is kind of their first weakness. They have kind of short lifespans for their abilities. They don't really get to learn them, they don't have enough time. Some of their weaknesses are their lack of armor. Pretty apparent. But they have super regeneration that lets them regrow limbs. They die if they eat something too large, because their brain is a ring and their throat is running through it. That's quite literally how an octopus works. The man... Batfish. Batfish man. Fishman. Batfish. What one is Batman as a fish? I think this guy or these guys would have the highest potential to be some sort of weird Batman fish. Either that or it's something like the deep fish, which I go into later. Let's see. Let's see. The males go into a Okay. The males go into a vegetative state after mating, drifting off to be eaten or starve. The females will not leave their eggs, and even when food is provided, they refuse to eat it. Of the 100 of hatchlings, if 2 survive to adulthood, it's good enough. But that's real octopi. We can fix those shortcomings, starting with their queen, Skeldrew the Kraken, the mother of octopi. Skeldrew has had her limitations removed by rewriting her DNA. I will not elaborate. Her children have gained her abilities is a lifespan much longer, a healing power more powerful, a brain smarter, a large, more resilient body, and reasonably structured. It's a shame they can't speak normally, but they have ink on demand, so writing shouldn't be a problem. Only one question remains. Why can't Skeldrew the Kraken return from the hidden sea? She can squeeze through almost any space and is smart enough to escape. Many octopi still believe she will return and reclaim her throne. Lizardmen, a nomadic tribe of crocodile men. Let's see, and write these guys off your bingo cards. They seem surprisingly nice during research. Both they and the Miremen simply fish for a large majority of their food. Rarely they eat a stray bird or two, but that's only when they're starving. It seems they conserve their resources as much as possible and take equally little. It's known why. Great crabs. Long ago, crabs were small, weak, and dumb. They didn't live long enough to grow large, until one day a crab grew to a new record, and unlocked an ability they weren't known to possess. Jinsey had gained intelligence. Throughout smarting his assailants who, due to them underestimating him, he grew larger and larger and started protecting his brothers and sisters, even managing to kill enough harpies and people from other tribes to arouse a bounty. But it was far too late. Not only had he made a deal with Skeldrew the Kraken, who empathized with the struggles of having your race face unsurmountable difficulties, but also the great Kal Kudzudora, the undisputed ruler of the swamp. Get out of me, swamp! Set up 2 more bases, one in the octopi territory and one in the swamp. Unfortunately, when the Sirens rebelled, Jinsey the Great Crab ran to the aid of Skeldrew the Kraken, and then was trapped in the hidden sea along with Skeldrew the Kraken. This may be why she has yet to return. By aiding Jinsey, She is stuck inside the hidden sea. The crabs, who had lost their king, were disheartened at first. But most didn't believe he had died, and all the crabs unanimously agreed that he would still be hailed as their king and leader until someone could prove he had faced death. Nowadays, the crabs assault the harpy nest, and vice versa. If you help them, they'd appreciate your help and allow you to become a crab knight class, which is like far superior to the harpy guard. I really need to improve the harpy guard to balance this. The crab knight class, which is a bulky, slow class that doesn't have much going for it, but can turn into 3 more powerful classes. Crab style martial artist. A martial arts style made by Jinsey himself. This style made by Jinsey himself. This class is very similar to a monk, using grapplings to subdue their opponent. Their main 3 skills are Shell, a passive skill that hardens your body, making blades less useful. Great Claw is the main attack skill, grappling their opponent with an insane grip strength, dealing slow but great damage. Sidestep, a passive skill that lets you dodge and counterattack. Then there's also Octo Armor, is a class that uses octopi on top of your pre-existing armor to provide buffs. The skills of this class are incredible. Squid Sneak, use your aquatic friends to get into places you really shouldn't and can't be undone with magic. Ink Attack, blinds your foe and can't be undone with magic. Friend Assist, you are wearing an undisclosed amount of ambush predators. What do you expect? Whether this takes form of them coating your weapons in poison, using magic, or helping with skills, the octopi you bond with can change your class a lot. They can also die, so your armor is their armor. Then the last thing is the ghillie suit, as the name may suggest. And if you've been paying attention, this suit has swamp growing on top of it, which segues nicely into swamp. That's weird. So let's see. Alright. Basically, I wanted to state that even though it states that the effects of them can't be undone with magic, you usually would have to have water magic of some kind to keep them hydrated while they're in your armor. Maybe you could have a fallback, but that's less reliable for constant use. Swamp. Their name resulted from a mistranslation. When the surfers heard swamp, they thought it was referring to swamp. Swamp. Swamp are a race of man-eating plants that live in the swamp. They live on top of trees and hang vines down. During the first exploration of the swamp, a knight using his newly enchanted sword tried to brush one of these vines away and cut it by accident. The swamp screeched and wrapped its vines around the man, raising him, revealing its maw, and tearing him to shreds. They retrieved some of his equipment. Some great crabs live in the swamp. They will eat a few of the big fish, but if they aren't hungry, they'll hand it to someone else. They do this to get rid of the large fish that pose a threat to their young. The inner half of the swamp is the domain of Cal Kadzudora, the swamp /swamp king, and a good friend of Jinsey. Speaking about the relations of the swamp and crabs, let's return to the ghillie suit. It's passive. It passively gives a high stealth bonus as well as a ranged grapple attack that drags your opponent closer until the swamp can deal fatal damage. So that's nice. One of my favorite lines has to be, "You are wearing an undisclosed amount of ambush predators. What do you expect?" Oh, and that reminds me. This is crab. This is a swamp, and this is what we're going to talk about next. These things. Let's see. Pirates, also known as rogues, they are a collection of criminals from the tribes. Or so they seem. Their crews are normally pretty diverse. Too diverse. It's not uncommon to see a pirate crew with both crabs and harpies, mortal enemies, with no conflict between them. This is a confusing sight at first, but once you understand the cause, the answer becomes a lot clearer. You see, just like any other pirates, they hoard gold, gems, and all-around treasure, but this is just camouflaged for the captain. You see, one of the chests in the bowels of the ship is a species you probably expected, a mimic. This dastardly menace is a parasitoid capable of killing a person without killing their body, separating their soul from it, and putting a piece of their mind in the husk. They can only do this up to 15 times at once. And if they do it at 15 times at once, their original body basically cannot act. It cannot use AI. It will still be alive, but it has to kind of force itself to eat. And that's everything for the... Oh yeah, save that. For the tribes. So that means that everything else on here is either some form of plant, animal, or item. This is message in a bottle. This is wine. This is mana potion, health potion, water breathing, and empty bottle. And then everything else is a creature of some kind. So why don't we talk about them? TCOP, the Leagues Below. This is the last part of the Northern Sea trilogy, sea life. We will be talking about the wildlife that is officially a tribal that isn't officially a tribal race. The beach, a main home of the crabs, the harpy, and the surfers. The beach is normally home to the fewest species in terms of non-tribal animals. Shell moss, hard blue moss that grows to look like seashells. During low tides, it filter feeds from the water. During high tides, it needs to breathe air. I call it moss, but that's not really what it is. It's more so some form of shellfish. It grows a shell around its main body, it filter feeds, and it needs to breathe air. So it's basically a non-aquatic clam. But when cooked, it replaced crab legs as a delicacy. Fishy boy. Yes. It simply drips and pours out of the shell as a stream of mouth-watering goodness. It can also grow on the backs of crabs that see it as an extra armor layer. It's commonly mistaken for a mussel or a clam, which it pretty much is. Because, let's be honest, that isn't moss. Then, too, land coral. An offshoot, I'd say they're basically similar species, probably related somehow through taxidermy. It's like cats and lions. This is almost exclusively used as armor for crabs. Like shell moss, it is a hard filter feeder that breathes air. growing near the coast. It almost it's almost extinct because it's easy to find and is better at making crab legs, depending on how you cook it, than shell moss. It was known to. I got to go in like 20, starting to get really late for me. Oh, sorry. Alright. Let's see. I'll try and speed this up in that case. Let's see. They're basically shell moss, just with a different shape, and are also harder to find. Sand shrooms, they are mushrooms that grow in sandy environments. There's a joke about how sand shrooms are normally from the desert, and two random people traded them for some bass king, which makes no sense, but somehow it works. And so there are bass king in the sand sea, and sand shrooms in the normal sea. Wiggle worms, a large worm that wiggles around. It's basically a type of lungfish, I think. And then a hidden swallowtail is a giant trapfish that lures them in by trying to mimic a mate of some kind. Hidden, and I also have a recipe here if you want to look back at it for some reason. The swamp, the main home of the miremen, the lizardmen, and the swamp. The swamp is used as a nursery for baby crabs, and certain fish pose a danger to them. So there are even fewer creatures here. The first off, fire ivy, also known as flame moss. This ivy is chocked full of capsaicin, which can cause burns when touched. It's used to spice dishes and adds a kick, but with this ivy, a little is a lot. Normally it's dried and ground into powder, which can be used as a weapon if a pouch is thrown, aka pepper spray with AoE. Black fiber root, also sometimes called the poop plant. Mechanically, it clears all consumed items, allowing you to re-eat your consumable items and also getting rid of their effect. For instance, if you were poisoned, eating this would immediately cancel out the poison. Wood shrooms, a group of different mushrooms that grow on trees in the swamp. Oak floats, basically driftwood driftwood trees. They're the main tree in the swamp. Herring, small fish that actually exist, and so I don't really go into much detail. Also AoE pepper spray sounds good. Alright. That was honestly something that I did after the fact, if you throw at people. But yeah, that was something that I realized after the fact, and I'm like, wait a minute. This is just pepper spray but worse cuz it has collateral damage. The sea, the main home of octopi, the merfolk, and the mimics. There are plenty of fish in the sea, so there is no shortage of life here. Let's see. 15. Oh. Coral. Spotted brain, fire, and wave coral. Spotted coral is spiky coral that's both black and white. Brain coral exists. Fire coral exists. They're basically harmful to touch in case of fire, and it just looks like a brain. And then wave coral is another made up thing. Basically, it's flexible coral that moves around in order to filter feed better, so it waves around. Seaweed, lush, scarce, peekaboo. Basically, lush is when it's ready to harvest, scarce is when you've just harvested, and then peekaboo is what you call it when it's infested. Other than that, it's seaweed. Pufferfish. You all know what a pufferfish is. Boom. Let's see. I think that's it. Everything. Pufferfish. We all know what a pufferfish is. The spikefish, a fierce predator sometimes called the scorpionfish. I added a twist to the pufferfish. Basically, instead of using its poison defensively, it uses it offensively, which is coincidentally another name for a rockfish. The tongue doubles as a large stinger to inflict their poison offensively. The splinterfish is a non-venomous variant that lives in the swamp. It is abundant. Its appearance is that of bark and driftwood, but it uses camouflage to little effect. Fish of the deep, gulper, eel, and anglerfish. Basically, this guy, which is one of the fish that subscribe to the philosophy of I swallow my prey whole, even though it's larger than me. And this is the anglerfish. You know what an anglerfish is. Let's see. Then there's the bass king. Basically, a bass king is when a bass reaches full maturity and then some. It grows an extra fin on its head, which is very transparent, except for these yellow markings on it. Let's see. Stoneworm and magnafish use its great eyesight to locate prey, specifically stoneworms that use their gray, tough skin to blend into the rocky seafloor. Then there are water bears, and these are the rockfish and rockworm and magnafish. This is a water bear. Water bears are normally mollusks, very small creatures. I don't know if they're mollusks specifically, but I know they're very small. But these ones aren't. Giant and resilient. Water bears resist to damage in general. Resistant to damage in general. If hurt significantly, it will go into a hibernating sleep and heal. It is invulnerable when in this sleep. So taking one down is an achievement. It literally gives you an achievement. 8 glow stars. Depending on how you can tell how old a glow star is because every 10 years it gains a new leg. It also doubles in size. They start as small as normal starfish, but grow to the size of a house. They are used as decor when they are small, but you'll need to replace the decor they're inside of once they outgrow it. Whales. Normally whales are calm, wise creatures, but these whales have a mission. They guard the northern sea from invasive species that could pose harm to it. They also restrict you from leaving, which is, their job so we don't have to actually make the entirety of the ocean. 10. Sea serpents. Small sea snakes that just don't stop growing. They are normally evil, but don't have the power to do much. They are normally mistaken for sea dragons at older sizes. Sunfish, flat, big fish. Sunfish absorb energy from the sun. They are a trophy among fishermen. When out of the water, they are a bright gold-red color. Some believe they have magic properties, but since they are hard to catch, most mages don't bother researching them, as they can't obtain a stable sample. This is called a sunfish, but I changed it because, Then let's see, what else have we used? These are the sea snakes, and then I'm pretty sure that was, and then this is the whale, okay, and then alligator gars, big, mean, and as ugly as, a fish. With a long muzzle full of sharp teeth, they can be a shock to see at first. Jousting fish, also known as spearfish. Jousting fish propel themselves to incredible speeds, harpooning their prey. If they miss, they swim far away enough to turn around. Their horn is similar to that of a narwhal, just a lot bigger. If caught, or more likely killed, its horn can be used as the blade of a great spear, which suffers no mobility drain in water. Basically, Riptide Trident from Minecraft. 14. Lava Fish, a direct upgrade of the Sunfish, also known as the Meltfish. It is extremely hot and uses the water around it to cool itself off. If taken out of the water, it will start melting. Many people joke and call it the puddle fish, but in reality, it is a marvelous fish. It's long with gold and red coloring as bubbles form on the tips of its fin. And many wizards pay to study it, but equally as many collectors and noblemen will also pay a high price for this rare specimen. Fosh. Fosh are normally big, slow fish, dumb and stupid, easy to catch for inexperienced fishermen. They are also in every body of water due to their elemental variance. If you fish a puddle after a rainstorm, you may catch a fosh. They are the default noob fish. Basically, this is to make sure that you can catch something. If you fish in lava, you can catch a fire fosh. If you fish at high altitudes, you will catch an air fosh. The puddle in a rainstorm, you will catch either a normal or an air fosh. And if you fish in the sand sea, you will catch an earth fosh. And that's everything with these guys. I'm pretty sure I used all of these. And I used this one. Let's see, the Amazon, welcome to the Western Forest. Now we're out of the tropical region and into the plains/forested region. There are 3 main factions in this part of the continent. It should be made clear now that Giant's Forest is only a small part of the Western lands. Basically, I was calling the Western lands the Giant's Forest before this point, because I hadn't fleshed it out yet. But now I'm doing that, and I changed that. So, there's the Fire Monks, who, as stated before, will actively seek out people and are more so cheery than the other monks. The Great Forest Alliance, a group of tribes located in some of the forests around the western region. 4 forests exist in the west: Giants, Fey, Elven, and Brimstone. But the Fire Monks exist in the Brimstone forest. The Human Empire, which is very big. The Merchants Guild, the Adventurers Guild, the Mage Tower. I went into more detail about that. But I don't see if any of that is necessary to an extent. So I'll just try and move on. TCOP in the woods. Let's start with the Brimstone Forest. It's named for the stone formations that resemble trees. That is something that I want to explain. And if you somehow fish in all, you get the avatar fish. You know what? Sure. If you can somehow manage to fish in wet sand, water, lava, and air at the same time, I will add that as a joke. And then I'll have the achievement you get for gaining it. How did you get this? Because you're not supposed to. There should not be a way you can get that. Though I'll probably have to name it something else due to copyright, but yeah. Maybe something... Am I in Tuesday now? I'll probably have to call it something like the Afoshtar, which just sounds wrong. But oh well. The Brimstone Forest has stone trees and is volcanic. The second area that's volcanic. It has the natives of the Fire Monks. They're the most accepting of other cultures and will actively seek them out. They are very happy neighbors. The Fey Forest. It changes seasonally depending on what time of year it is. For instance, in spring, it is full of a lot of fruit that are very good trade goods. At summer, the Fae celebrate for seemingly no reason, holding lavish parties, banquets, and selling as much fruit as they can, because fall, the spirits break free, which are not Fae, they are spirits. They of their prison, causing havoc, needing to be sealed again. It's the Halloween event. The forest becomes overgrown with cobwebs, and any food left uneaten is possessed. The winter, the Fey Forest is overtaken by the snow wisps that visit for the holidays. This completely enshrouds the forest in a layer of ice that only begins to melt in the next spring. This literally puts an ice dome over the forest that only melts, that only has a chance to melt when both the snow wisps leave and it starts getting warmer, which I thought was hilarious. The Elven Forest, we don't know much about it. We've only heard what it's like from elves, and specifically normal elves. And so, yeah, we really don't know a lot. There is apparently high elves, but we can't check because they don't let anyone else into the forest. Then there's the Giants Forest. Everything in the Giants Forest is given the Giants template because of the area. And so some of the insectoids, the insect folk, have made colonies. The three main colonies are Ant Den, Bee Nest, and Flower Grove. Ant Den is basically a bunker city deep underground with a thriving community of different jobs. Bee Nest is basically a trade city buying pollen from Flower Grove in exchange for honey, which has become a popular trade good due to its flavor and creamy texture. Flower Grove is basically a farming settlement, is a large field full of flowers, giant flowers, that farmers harvest the pollen of the flowers and trade it to the bee's nest in exchange for honey, which is basically food. They are also goblins, but they are considered monsters. And that's all except for the last part. I was going to think I was thinking of making it alongside the viewers if any showed up, which you did. But if you're running out of time and need to get to bed, then we can just do it next Saturday if that's more acceptable. We could tomorrow. Yeah, all right. Normally I stream Saturday and Monday, but honestly I just want to get TCOP over with. It's like, wow, you're my first child, and I want to, like, how do I yeet the child without being a bad parent? Like, cuz I can just not deal with this alarm clock. Um so yeah, I can do it tomorrow. I'm gonna. How about 3:30 Central, and it is 6:05 p.m. on me, so 3:30 p.m. would be a couple hours before now. I do it at 5 these days. Okay. So that people can get home from their jobs. But yeah, thank you for watching, and yeah, you're free to go now. You are no longer held in